Hello and welcome to another PACOP Morning Tea Talk. I'm Laura, and today we're going to be talking about navigating PACOP education and training resources. I'd like to start with an acknowledgement of country. PACOP wishes to acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the traditional custodians of the lands that we are meeting on virtually today. I acknowledge this land was never ceded and that we're coming to you today from Dharawal country, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present, emerging, and future. Today, we're going to have a bit of a chat about PACOP's blended learning approach. We'll talk through some of our learning resources and the accessible training for staff, and we're going to have a look at some of the learning pathways that we have set up as we use a train the trainer model, how to navigate our education and training resources, and a brief example of a learning timeline as well. So PACOP uses a blended learning approach for aged care workforce training. This includes online self-directed learning options, face-to-face learning through our in-person workshop events that are held nationally, and virtual learning as well. Our online self-directed learning courses are developed by our improvement facilitators on feedback that we have from staff that attend our workshops and education sessions. They include case-based scenarios. They have embedded recorded presentations from the team out of our Clinical Bites series that run for about 5 to 7 minutes. This can help consolidate written material. There's also downloadable resources and downloadable assessments to get your staff started with PACOP. They're an evidence-based course for aged care staff, nurses, and clinical and quality leads. Virtual learning options. PACOP improvement facilitators work with your aged care home and offer a broad range of ways that we can support your aged care staff learning to use the PACOP assessment tools. We have our pre-recorded YouTube playlist, which are aimed at either your registered nurses or your care staff, aiming specifically around the use of the SAS, the Symptom Assessment Scale. We also have virtual interactive workshop sessions run monthly. These are run via Zoom, and we use an interactive component to engage learners in the content and ensure that they're translating those clinical skills for assessment from the content in the day. We also offer community of practice meetings. The improvement facilitators set these up for aged care homes that are formally participating in PACOP, and we use this as a way to support ongoing training and mentoring with the program and build some mentoring into those time periods as well. We also offer facilitated in-services where perhaps if your aged care team need some additional information on a component of the assessment or on one of the clinical tools used, the improvement facilitators are more than happy to work with your organisation or with your aged care home to set up some virtual in-services aimed to help with the learning. Our face-to-face learning options. PACOP offers workshops nationally under a train the trainer model. To do this, we have improvement facilitators based around the country, and we regularly rotate locations for workshops. And we have a national training and workshop calendar, so you can see the different locations that are coming up. And we work with aged care homes as well to identify where there's interest and where we should be approaching a region to offer a PACOP workshop. So we certainly do action accessibility and equality as well to access our PACOP education workshops. So we bring groups of clinical leads together from the aged care homes participating in PACOP. It's a great day for them to engage with teams from other aged care homes and share knowledge and experience of how they're delivering palliative care in their aged care homes and start discussions around how they're going to get started with PACOP and what training methods would be suitable for their care teams. We know there's a lot of variance in our aged care providers and resources for education and training, and so it's a great way to share tips and tricks and build relationships across the sector. There's no attendance cost for staff to come to a workshop, and stakeholders are welcome as well because we like to collaborate with your local palliative care teams, with the primary health networks, with lots of different stakeholders involved in palliative care and aged care. We are more than welcome to extend that invite so that everybody's on the same page and we can communicate and coordinate care for our residents effectively. In 2025, we're going to be expanding our workshop suite. So there'll be fundamental skills to get started with PACOP. There'll also be an advanced clinical skills workshop on offer and are using PACOP for quality improvement. This will focus on supporting the development of skills around interpreting the data in PACOP reports into clinical improvement activities so that when you get your next report, we can measure the improvement in resident outcomes. Some of the feedback from our face-to-face training, we are very excited that we have a 97% satisfaction rate by our attendees, and this is from feedback from over 1,000 people. Requests for more workshop dates is something we always get asked about. We also get requested to do further IT training for our PAL Center software, offering additional virtual training, which I've touched on, so you're aware that we offer virtual training. Updates on the latest PACOP data, more information on this coming on our national PACOP reports, and further information for families and residents. And ANAC is always a hot topic as well. Some of the feedback we get are related to things that are external to our PACOP program and are more related to the aged care homes or the providers themselves. And that's around funding for staff attendance, having extra staff at the aged care home, protected time for PACOP training, mandating PACOP training for their teams, and greater support. So we feed this back to the aged care providers and we work with them to make sure that we have an effective staff training plan utilising the PACOP education and resources. So using a train the trainer model in aged care, what does that look like? So our train the trainer model came from our development out of the Palliative Care Outcomes Collaboration Program, PACOC, and we use the train the trainer model for our program in aged care. We bring groups of registered nurses or our clinical leaders together, and they really become our trainers. So they come to our fundamentals workshops, and that can either be virtual or face-to-face, and they have ongoing connection with the improvement facilitators through the community of practice. The next step for them would be to attend an advanced workshop. As I mentioned, these are launching in 2025, and then annual participation in our benchmarking workshop. This is around developing skills for data interpretation and evidencing improvements in service at the aged care home through the use of the PACOP reports. For our general workforce, the learning pathway looks somewhat similar in that we get them to start with the fundamentals as well. This is usually done online on the self-directed learning program. We also have a SAS for Care Staff course that we'll be releasing in the coming month. This helps the trainers to be able to teach those core skills to be using the PACOP assessment tools for staff. And it means that then we can work with the PACOP clinical leads on site and we help them build some in-services or toolbox talks or have some handouts or information available. We'll get to that in a little bit, but we work with them around a training plan for the on-site commencement of PACOP. A certain percentage of these people may advance on to become PACOP clinical leads in time, and so then they would transition into that step 2 in the clinical leads pathway and they would attend an advanced workshop with PACOP. Navigating the PACOP shop. So this is our online resource portal. It was released through COVID and effectively it was nicknamed the PACOP shop by our trial group of aged care homes and it's stuck. So although we say the PACOP shop, all of it's free. There's no cost for accessing any of our resources and training and it is available 24/7. We send the links out to aged care homes when they register or to our collaborating partners in palliative care and aged care. You can see this box on the left-hand side of your screen here. There's a couple of different headings. Under these headings, there's a lot of resources that have been built into there over the time. We're currently reviewing the PACOP shop to make it a little bit clearer and help navigate a little bit more smoothly for some of our aged care homes. And part of that is around, like I mentioned, the variance that we have in the sizes and the participation of our organisations and the resources they have available to them. So you can see here on the left, we start with the resources around our profile and outcomes collection. So these are the clinical assessments. There's also some education and training resources specifically there that relate to completion of the assessment tools. We've got a tab there for quality improvement and reporting resources. So this helps develop skills around interpreting your reports and getting started with a quality improvement activity. We've also made it easy to embed our integrated resources. So we've got the link for our YouTube channel there. There's also our workshop and training calendar, our PACOP learning virtual modules or our self-directed learning course as well. So if at any time you lose links or websites on how to navigate or access more PACOP resources, you can come back to this site and easily see the variety in resources and navigate to what you want. There's also some information on the PACOP team down the bottom there, and that will highlight the ways that our improvement facilitators work and who your improvement facilitator might be and how to get in contact with the team if you need additional support. So some top tips for getting started with PACOP and supporting education and training with your workforce. Firstly, we have our newsletter. So our newsletter is produced quarterly. It features some great sections that are really handy for your staff. There's top tips on completing the assessments. There's information about our recent workshops and updates on the program. There's some great tips in there for clinical staff in using the assessments. We'll start to include some data and quality improvement insights as well, and that's released quarterly. So you can subscribe to the PACOP newsletter through a link on the PACOP shop, or at the bottom of our team's emails, we generally have a little subscribe here button as well. So that's a great way to get some regular updates from PACOP. Of course, you can save and embed links like the PACOP courses or the PACOP shop into your resources within your aged care home. We're working with providers at the moment to embed those links into their regular orientation plans and save them into their website lists as well. So that's a great tip because everything can be accessed virtually. Our next tip, no surprise for people who work in health, is wall space. We love a good poster and a flowchart or team notice boards. Most aged care homes that we work with utilise these methods for communicating with staff. We certainly have flowcharts and posters that we make available to you. We also use some QR codes as well to make it easy for your teams. And get involved. Meet with your improvement facilitator regularly. Communities of practice are great for developing some skills and particularly around updating your training plans with your team. As we bring groups of people together in the communities of practice, it's great to hear others' experiences and perspectives and see what strategies they've used in their teams that have helped them to navigate resources and you do effective staff training with them as well. So that's always something that's really beneficial, particularly if you've got new staff that are coming along and you've had some changes in your team structure. Getting them involved in the communities of practice is a great way to build skills with PACOP. So an example of the education timeline when we put it all together. Starting with our fundamentals, again, targeting our clinical leads, that's usually around the first month of implementation because we need to train our clinical leads to get started with using the assessments clinically. So usually that's the first month ahead of implementation. We set a go live date or a time when we're going to start using PACOP with your residents. We train the staff before we come out and start with the assessments. The ongoing workforce training, this is an ongoing task. So implementing PACOP into your routine orientation packages or mandatory training plans is a great way to make sure that staff are aware of the PACOP training resources and how you do that as an organisation and, you know, who they can send their certificate to when they've completed, all of those types of things. So we work with aged care organisations and their education and development teams to clearly communicate a process of the completion of the PACOP learning course or workshops and where they can send their certificates to. PACOP Advanced for clinical leads, usually this is the first 3 to 6 month post-implementation of PACOP. Again, this will be launched towards the end of the year, launching in 2025. So within the first 3 to 6 months post-implementation of PACOP, now this is because usually that first 3 or 6 months, we're starting with the assessments. We're doing some cycles of profile. Now the profile is done every 3 months. So you can see that once we've done that a couple of times, starting to consolidate those foundation skills that we've taught. Now we're ready to progress to the advanced skills for clinical leads. So we're looking about 3 to 6 months just for the selected group of people who are going to be your PACOP champions or your train the trainers for your staff. Then in the next 6 to 9 months, we're looking at those clinical leads participating in either the PACOP Quality Improvement Workshop or completing the online course. This will be around that time period because our reporting cycles are 6 monthly. So by the time your aged care homes complete a participation in PACOP, they will have got their first report back. We want to act on that excitement of getting your first PACOP report, teaching some skills around interpreting some of the data and the clinical assessment information in the report so that we can then work with them to target an area for quality improvement. Again, this is an ongoing process that's facilitated in the communities of practice and by the improvement facilitators. So they help around the translation of the data into quality improvement processes, but coming along to this workshop or completing the online course will really help develop some skills and confidence in your staff for those activities. And of course, annually we have a benchmarking workshop. We try and get a representative from at least one of your staff from your aged care home who's submitting data to PACOP and getting reports, because our benchmarking program, it shows where your aged care home sits against one, the benchmark, and two, the national average. So it's a great way to come together with aged care homes from around the country and compare where you're doing against the benchmark and hear from others around some of the quality improvement processes they're putting into place and where they've been able to evidence improvement in the outcomes of care for residents and their families. It's a really valuable day and it's held annually. So it's really important for us that we support sustainable workforce education and training through PACOP resources. We work really closely with the sector and with providers, so we know that there's still a little bit of ongoing movement in the workforce. We know that there's a continued shortage of skills. So it's key to us that we find ways to really maximise efficient and effective use of training time. Part of that is our engagement with aged care providers, like I've mentioned a couple of times. We can integrate into education and training plans, orientation packages, to really make sure that we're maximising time and resources. Where we work with sector collaborations, this may include workforce agency providers where they have training available, where we've got companies who provide third-party education plans. We've also got our national bodies like PCC for You and Pally Aged Care, where we have workforce education and training resources available for free. And that ties in with our self-directed learning as well. So to increase accessibility to PACOP, there's a wide way that staff can access our resources, and they are freely publicly available. Of course, part of the big picture thinking for PACOP is we would love to work with some technical vocation education training providers and some tertiary education providers to offer them the chance to either link PACOP resources in for staff in workforces while they're undergoing training or implement it into their curriculum as well. So this increases the knowledge and awareness of PACOP. So before staff even come to the aged care home in an employment capacity, they've had exposure to PACOP and they're aware of what the outcomes measurement is and that quality improvement cycle as well. So that's the presentation side of the talk today. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to drop this slideshow down. I thought I will give you an example of how our learning courses are looking, what their aim is, and I'll show you some tips in the PACOP shop as well. So I'm just going to jump out of this presentation and we can see here, this is the PACOP shop. So when we open the page up, it looks like this. And you can see we've got our first links here, a profile and outcomes. So as I mentioned, these are the clinical assessments and some resources here. And so you can see here we've got a list of the education and training resources. They're linked here, or we've got the actual assessments. If you need to download the tools or you want to share them with your staff, that's how you can access them there. When we then come to our quality improvement and reporting links, you can see here there's a guide on interpreting your report. What is a report analysis plan? These are things that the improvement facilitators support you with, but there's some great dashboard guides and tips as well. One of the things I really wanted to highlight today was this section. This is our workshop and training calendar. And you can see here we've got links for all of our future education and training for the next kind of quarter. We try and keep them updated. So we've got our virtual sessions. You can see where we've got in-person workshops booked and the dates. And then we've got our Eventbrite links as well for registration. Now, where you have particularly key staff members who would like to get to a workshop, if they're unable to do a virtual workshop, the PACOP team can talk with you about supporting travel arrangements to get them to their closest regional workshop as well. We also have the online learning courses linked here. And so if you need to find the link to access the learning course, you can click the course here and it will take you to the front landing page. Our learning courses look like this. So this is an example. This is where we teach about how to use the Rockwood Clinical Frailty Scale, which is a validated tool. And you can see here, we've got some written information. These are all designed to be completed as micro learning. So staff can come and complete one component for the day in about 15 minutes. Or if they've got longer time or it's orientation, they can sit and complete the course in full. But there is the option of completing it in micro learning, and it is suitable to complete on a mobile phone as well as on a smart device or a computer. So we've got the validated tool, we've got some scoring tips. You can see here, here's our optional YouTube video if staff would prefer to watch the video. There's some additional evidence-based resources here for further reading. And there's also our training tip sheets as well. And you can see we've got two case studies there and a couple of questions at the end. So that's kind of the layout that we use for our online learning module. It's straightforward, it's clear, it's engaging, and staff can access this on a phone while they're at work or separate to their shift hours in a larger time period as well. Okay, thank you so much for joining us. I just wanted to open it up and see if we had any questions coming through. We'll, of course, make the video recording and a PDF of the slides available for you all. And certainly you can contact the PACOP team if you have any additional questions about using our education and training resources, or perhaps you have requests for some. You can see on the PACOP shop, there's so many resources because where we have specific needs identified by an aged care home or a team, we're very willing to go and create a resource for you or a tip sheet or a guide to help with your staff training. So that is something that we do. And then we make it broadly available for other providers as well. Fabulous. Well, if there's no questions, oh, there's one in the Q&A. Let me just see. Oh, thank you. Sonia, you're very welcome. Thank you for joining us. It's absolutely a pleasure. I'm sure you know with our improvement facilitators, everyone's very passionate about education and training and trying to make things clear and just maximize the use and the time and the resources that we all have in palliative care and aged care. Yeah, absolutely. We know we're so time poor. Thank you so much. I'll see you all again, and you'll receive an email with a PDF of the slides, and I'll make sure that these pages are hyperlinked for you so that it is easy to navigate after we've just spoken about all of that. And we'll see you at the next morning tea talk next quarter. Thank you. Bye.